Good evening, and welcome to Soluble, America's Political Central. We want to start off today by, sending our thoughts to south of the state Floridians who have took the brunt of the latest hurricane that we've had in, and it's a lot of devastation, a lot of debris, a lot of down structures, and people just having to start their lives over, basically being uprooted in a lot of ways. So we want to take our time out to consider them and think about them in remembrance of the ones who've lost life in this brutal storm that hit south of the state last week. So here we are, people, the American people. Here we are, 35 days from the big day, and that big day is the midterm elections. That big day is the midterm elections. And this will go a long ways in pretty much determining the future of the American democracy. So, henceforth, the title of tonight's discussion, Direction of Democracy. This vote, this election cycle, will start to shape the future of American democracy. So, on one side you have it's two major parties. One side you have the Republicans, one side you have the Democratic Party. And, just think about that for a minute. This election will go a long ways in determining what the future democracy in this republic will look like. The bottom line. So first and foremost, we need turnout. There is no time to be fearful or ignorant. There's no time to be fearful or ignorant. We need to let our voices be heard, if you will. And as I've asked and spoken of, Negroes in America, when we get the turnout, when we get Negroes in America to turn out for an election, we pretty much turn the tides. We're pretty much that counterbalance that swings it either one way or the other. So, that's where it's at. If we can get the turnout, we can, pivot America towards a more brighter future, a more stronger democracy. So, how we go about proving that. Of course, here at Soluble, we're looking for the solution. And we're not, sold on the fact, it's not in stone here at this podcast that the solution lies with the Democratic Party. But, we have to look at it for what it is right now. I've staunchly voted Democrat as it relates to the Republican Party. Number one, being a states' rights party. That's definitely a red flag, double red flag, if you will, triple for me, or what it echoes back to in a time of America. But if there's a Republican who can strive to make America that shiny city on the hill, where are the Ronald Reagan Republicans of yesterday? What have they morphed into? Because this is very extreme by Reagan standards. This is very extreme by Reagan standards. So here we go. As far as the direction of democracy, you have Republicans, you have Democrats, and you have the independents in the middle, willing to make up their mind based on what the arguments from both sides of the aisle, what they consist of, what their policies are. Then they're the independents. So they can fall either way. But to my fellow Democrats, I said once, I'm going to say it again. If we get the turnout, we can't lose. And, it's a dangerous time now. Let's not kid ourselves. It's a dangerous time in politics because of what the previous president caused the Republican Party to fall to, the level that he led them to fall to, the depths of depravity that the former president led the Republican Party to. It is what it is. I didn't make this up. I'm just playing the hand that the Republicans dealt me. Now here we are. What have they failed to? You have a president, you have two presidents now, a tale of two presidents, as far as the previous president and the president who's currently in office now. Now, currently, we have a president in office who loves his country. He loves his country, first and foremost, versus a former president who, as I've said on former casts, loved himself. And then country, maybe, it depends. Or maybe a segment or whatever. Now, the proof is in the pudding. You have, in our lifetime, we've seen presidents come into office, young, fresh. They leave office in 4 to 8 years. You can see the age on them. You can see the weariness. You can see the sleepless nights of trying to figure out foreign policy or how to best protect America. What are we going to do to bring jobs back, to keep taxes low? What are we going to do about crime so it is, distributed out equally and equitably to lower the crime rate? You have a president in office who's got to be the commander-in-chief of all these things and all these issues. So it does ages them. It doesn't cause them to put extra years on. It takes a president who's in office, sometime we've seen it where, he's had 8 years and it looks like he's aged 16 to 20 by the time those 8 years are up. And that's how that's an example of a president who loves his country. Then you have the previous president who, some of his own party in hush whispers or behind closed doors have referred to as Orange Jesus. Some in his own party who hasn't aged a bit. In the 4 years that the former president was in, you didn't see that. And that's an example of a president who loves and just cares only about himself. So you have a choice to make, ladies and gentlemen, to the American people. You have a choice to make. There you have it. The president comes into office, doesn't show no sign of aging. Why? Why is this? This is unusual for a president of the United States. Doesn't show very to little to no signs of aging. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. That is a president who cares only about himself. So therefore, the state of politics in America today has caused it to, that attitude, that mentality has caused it to spiral downward. And it will continue if we don't make an impact at the polls now. Your rights are being taken away. The woman's right to choose. It's all on the ballot going forward. And everything is everything. Governor Abbott in Texas, who put out one of the, strictest, harshest abortion laws in the country, said he would deal with the rapists. But what we're reading here now at Soluble, what we're reading now is that, the clinicians, this is not Soluble. This is not opinion based on what we here at Soluble is saying. We're looking for a solution. So we have to challenge everything that makes the solution harder to get to. We have to challenge it. We have to challenge it on face value. We're trying to do fact finding here. So the clinicians in Texas, this is their position that, when it comes to rapists and the rate of it happening, the beat goes on. The beat goes on. So, this is the kind of credibility or lack thereof that you're going to be allowing to hold office. This is the kind of governing mentality that you're going to have controlling your everyday lives, calling shots on your everyday lives, governing, if you will, your everyday lives. So it's decision time. As I said, we can't let fear or ignorance play a role or interfere. It's up to us now to show where the true power in American government lies at, and that's with the people. But you can only demonstrate that, and you can only show that if you come out and turn out in large numbers. Now, also based on what we've been reading and observing, you have Republican lawmakers now chomping at the bits, saying that, of course, there will be an impeachment of Joe Biden and investigation of Hunter Biden, because Hunter has compromised his father some type of way. Now, remember what I've told you if you've been paying attention to broadcasts from the past. Investigations. Here we go. While we're investigating, wasting taxpayers' money, what is China doing? What is Russia doing? But Republicans are willing to they're willing to take their eyes off the ball. Hunter has compromised his father, the current president in office now, Joseph R. Biden. He's been compromised by his son Hunter, and there needs to be an investigation. But if the former president is on the world stage siding with Vladimir Putin about what goes on in American elections or what possibly happened with American elections, where's the compromise? Has he been compromised? By his own actions, it will point to a fact that in all likelihood, the former president is compromised in some kind of way. But nothing on that. Nothing on something legitimate, something that could be a threat to national security. Nothing. So you really need to think about this to the American electorate, because this is dangerous. This is dangerous for us to put a party in office that's don't care nothing about legislation, just investigation. And meanwhile, what are our foreign adversaries doing? What are they building? Are they ready to send a secret bug in and crash the electric grid? Are they ready to infiltrate some of the water systems in America that are operated online? We've already seen an attempt down here in Florida. But as sure as I'm sitting here tonight, this will, in all likelihood, increase the chances of this happening with investigation after investigation that turns up nothing. So, it should be seen as an insult. But, we're not going to tell people how they should feel or think. But I would think, me personally, it's insulting for a political party to come out and campaign for office, and they have nothing for us as far as why we should choose them versus the opposing party, but personal, invalid attacks on their opponent. They're personal. They're invalid. They're fear-mongering statements or approaches, if you will, to gaining office. So it's insulting. It's insulting. As I say, look at the history. Take it from now and go back. Take it from now and go back. To all the poisoning of the water, if you will, the dirty politics, if you will, of the Republican Party with past investigations. Now, we should vote them in again to investigate another year or two of wasting taxpayers' money. What do you got? You got emails. You got Benghazi. You got the Rose Law Firm. You got Whitewater. And then after all this comes out in the wash, you got nothing but a waste of taxpayers' money Republican corporate lawyers getting rich. And there you have it, folks. A way to siphon off the American taxpayers' hard-earned money into the pockets of Republican lawyers, Republican lobbyists, whatever. But at the end of the day, these investigations have brought forward zilch, zero. In the words of Donald Jr., it's a nothing burger. Nothing. So it's definitely on the ballot, It's definitely on the ballot. If you're going to cast that ballot for a Republican candidate, then you're going to support these investigations that go nowhere. They don't help your pocketbook. They don't help to try to bring back more cleaner air and water. They do nothing to keep us safe from foreign adversaries. They do nothing to bring down the crime rate. It's just a blank investigation into the president's son that will go nowhere. It's a good chance it won't happen, but it's great fear mongering leading up to an election. It's a great scare tactic. It's great propaganda to scare the American voter. You. So, like I said, it's insulting to me. And, to all our listeners out there, you take it however you would take it. But that's what you're going to get. That's what you're going to get. Investigation after investigation by a party that has gone rogue. A party that's lost its mind. So we have 35 days here. As I said at the opening of the cast, we just had a major storm to hit the state. A major storm to hit the state. But you won't see Republicans come forward and talk about renewable energy. You won't see them do that. So, there's another direction for democracy. Something you have to think about when you cast your vote as far as the direction of democracy. Democracy shouldn't have to go where the money goes or where the money's at. The democracy should be meant to uplift, better, enhance the lives of everyday American people and, make the laws stronger and stronger, but fair as you go. But that's where a lot of the global warming difference is coming from when it comes from the right side of the aisle. It's all about the almighty dollar. It's all about the almighty dollar. So you follow the money. Can we let go of fossil fuels? Can we, how much, it's had its time. It's run its course. It served a great purpose in making our lives comfortable, convenient, enriching America, keeping us moving as a country when it comes to import, export, etc. But it's run its course. Or has it when it comes to those on the right? Has it? So here we are, 35 days. 35 days. And we will begin to see which direction democracy is going to take. Now, the current president is in office. He's working. He's working hard for the American people. How do you know this? You see it in the press conferences. You don't see the president come out and only appear at a rally for far left supporters, for never Trumpers. You don't see the president doing that, holding a rally with a hand-picked audience, a select few, if you will. Make sure they're Biden lovers, no matter what he says or does. Make sure they're Biden lovers. And, the president is going around and around the country only appearing at rallies that are sponsored and entertained by Democratic loyalists, Democratic boosters, donors, whatever. The president is out here working every day hard with the Inflation Reduction Act, he came out and had a press conference to try to explain to the American people what he was trying to do and why he thought it would work best. The Democratic president is working for the American people. How do we know? The president doesn't come out and just like a blank notice and appears at these press conferences or calls these press conferences. He only comes out after he's consulted with a panel of experts, his cabinet officials. He wants to make sure that he's accurate, that he can tell the American people something that is not misleading based on what he has, based on what he knows. There you have it. The president cares about the country. The president cares about the country. I mean, an innocent gaffe, let's call it what it is, an innocent gaffe. He called out for Congresswoman Walorski, may she rest in peace. She was in a fatal automobile accident here a month or so ago. And, the president had a gap. We're gonna, call it fair. But are we prepared to say that that's a sign of senility, or that's a sign that the current president in office is incapable? No. Congresswoman Walorski, she championed this so-called bill to end hunger or ease hunger or something around the food crisis in America. She championed the bill. So it's more than likely that the president would have a slip of the tongue, because obviously he had been working hand in foot with her or some of her aides on a regular basis. So whether he was working personally with her in the room and calling her by name, even if he was working with the aides, they had to be saying what the Congresswoman Walorski wanted them to say. So therefore, the woman was on his mind. And so, it's an innocent slip of the tongue, because the president had previously worked with Congresswoman Walorski tirelessly on this piece of legislation or bill or what have you. So it's what it was, but by no means. Now, you can go into the Republican playbook to fear mongering, chapter 4. You can go there and you can buy it. You can believe the hype. You can buy into it. But that's all it is. That's all it is at the end of the day, hype. That's all it is hype. It's fear mongering. For a current president that we have right now who didn't champion being a president. He had resigned to his fate that he was senator and he was vice president. And he actually, even though he had ran for the highest office in the land, he never made it. He was content with that. So, things had to be, let's face it, really bad from the right for the president to come out of retirement, pretty much, after being urged by the nation. And that was a nation of people from the right and the left. You won't hear that as far as the right just out in Republican circles. They'll never admit that. Even those who urged him or wanted him was hoping and praying that he would run. But, here we are. He ran. He came out of retirement. He did it for the country. And he's making a tireless effort to keep America on track. Now, the direction of the democracy right now, it can be questioned. I mean, we have a war going on. Russia is wreaking havoc in Europe. Russia is wreaking havoc in Eastern Europe. So, what can we expect there from a leader from a country that has chosen to be America's arch rival? He's doing the best he can in spite of. This war has a domino effect in a lot of ways when it comes to food prices, energy costs. It has an effect on the American economy. So, once again, consulting with his advisors, his foreign policy experts, the president is doing, a heck of a job trying to see what can he do to, first of all, bring Vladimir Putin to the negotiating table, to bring him to his senses, to get him to negotiate. He's in an unwinnable war because of, number one, troop morale, the lies that were told. Number two, the Ukrainians' fighting ability, capability, determination. The president of Russia is an unwinnable situation, but yet he's still doubling down. And it's having an effect, like I said, on the American economy in some areas: food, energy costs. It could be holding up. It could be hampering or holding up import and export. We're not inside, the halls of DC, with the main players, but those are some great reasonings to lean to as to why the economy may seem to be taking off. Then it begins to sputter. Does the war in Ukraine have a domino effect on housing prices, on what goes on with the interest rate? I mean, let's face it. The president came into office right three quarters of a way through a pandemic. Three quarters of the way through a pandemic with a beleaguered medical staff. So he's done a great job. He's done a great job in spite of what was given to him as far as him, coming into office. And we know that, based on the insurrection, there was probably little to no cooperation from the former president. Little to no cooperation from the former president, a sore loser. So while the Democratic Party is not perfect, by no means, the Democratic Party does not always get it right. They are, however, a work in progress towards what's best for America. And we're going to go into this leading up to the election. As I said, we have 35 days. So here it's Soluble in looking for a solution. Which party, which candidate, which individual, which ideology can give us the best solution for our everyday lives, to make housing affordable, to give us clean air and water, to strengthen the economy, to make sure that there's a livable wage based on the cost of living, to make sure that everybody pays their fair share when it comes to taxes. That's the direction that we're going in now. That's the direction that we're headed in. We live in a system where, you pay your taxes or the IRS can come at you. We all know that. So if you don't have a problem with that, that's the American way. The IRS is part of the American way. Here's another thing. Here's a Republican saying that, if they win back the House, then that's the first thing they're going to want to do is try to repeal the latest thing that the president has done by strengthening the IRS work staff. What are you afraid of? What are the Republicans, rich corporate lobbyists, cronies, donors, what are they afraid of? They love the country, but they don't want to pay their fair share. Now, here at Soluble, we agree. If in increasing that fair share, making them pay their fair share, if a lot of it is going to go into entitlements in the form of welfare, we at Soluble, we think you have an argument there. We think you have an argument there because, as we've stated before in this podcast, that is one thing that has broke down the family in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways. So we agree with you there. But back to the direction of the democracy. Here we are, folks. You know, we're headed down a road, and it's coming to a cross though. This road is a fork coming down the road, and it's about 35 days away. So you can fork to the left, and you're taking America in the right direction. Then history will record. History will record those who turn out, those who don't turn out and want to complain or don't know what's going on. What's one of the things that's going on is that here in America, it can wind up like a situation that's going on in Ukraine, a battle for the soul of democracy. That's part of the battle going on there, whether they want to have freedom or totalitarianism, autocracy. And this is we're not there in America yet. But as I said, we're on a road, but there's a fork coming up. And it's about 35 days away. That fork in the road. You could turn to the left, as I said, and you could keep America going towards strengthened democracy, integrity in government, hardworking individuals trying their best every day to figure it out. What's best for the American people and being honest and open. Or you can take that right hand fork and get more of the same of what you just voted out 2 years ago. Why would we bring it back? What is the definition of stupid? Think about it, people. Think about it. What direction will we take in a democracy? Of course, you know, you got the MAGA rights, and Trumpism is alive and well. I mean, we have to call it like we see it, because every candidate right now is afraid to announce their candidacy. Now, after the midterms, the pressure is really gonna mount. The pressure is really gonna mount. But right now, before the midterms, 35 days out, you haven't had one Republican come out solidly and say, "I'm running. I'm in the race." Because in some of their own words, and some of the own words from right-leaning lawmakers and politicians, Orange Jesus has them shaking in their boots. They're afraid of the former president, Donald J. Trump. What does that say to us as we approach this fork in the road? What does that say that one whole party, one whole group of people with an ideology for governing would be afraid of one man? Does that sound like the home of the brave? Does that sound like the home of the brave? And then, you know, to be afraid of a man that's such a weak leader, such a weak leader. All this will be reflected on the ballot. All this, any candidate with an R beside their name will toe the party line. They will toe the party line. And it's a crooked line. It's a crooked line. But they will all toe it. And it's a very crooked line. So, you know, 35 days out. If you haven't made your mind up yet, we're hoping that we can help you here. You know, we challenge anything other than, you know, what we've said as far as we hold these truths to be self-evident between the two parties. The proof is in the pudding. the work has been done, from the past up to now. As I said, you have a party here that's on the right, that's ready to gain power and begin to investigate. And we've seen where the past investigations have went. Then on the other hand, you have legitimate things going on, things that could really threaten democracy, could threaten government. Benghazi, no threat. Nothing happened. No charges were brought. No penalties had to be paid. Whitewater, emails, nothing. But here you have a party that has the audacity, that has the gall to be ready and willing to have investigations when some of the biggest scandals of the past have come out of the party. Now they're showing footage of election officials, right-wing election officials in Coffee County, in Douglas, Georgia, going into election offices, doing God knows what. Are they tampering with voting machines? What's going on? But you haven't heard nothing from the right. You haven't heard nothing from Republican lawmakers. The election was stolen. And here you have officials in Coffee County. You've seen it. It's made the evening news round. This is the Republican Party. Smoke and mirrors. The Republican playbook, Chapter 9. Smoke and mirrors. Here we are. They're constantly screaming that the election was stolen. The election wasn't fair. But some of the most egregious violations or acts of trying to cheat in the election have been coming from the right, from people on the right. And as I told you before in former podcasts, the Republicans know that there is a changing demographic here. And they're going to have trouble making the case with this same old ideology. Can they pivot to the right, which is their position when it comes to either side of the aisle? Can they pivot to the right and do the right thing on climate change? What is the plan? House Minority Leader McCarthy, he came out here a couple weeks ago with some thinly veiled promises to Americans. But we're going to take a deep dive as best we can. So as I said, to bring certain issues to light, to get you to think about certain things. If you haven't already cast your ballot, before you get ready to cast your ballot, to bring truth to light, to try to show where the smoke and mirrors, which direction is coming from, how not to be tricked by it, how not to be fooled by the illusion. But make no mistake about it, history has recorded. While we have a party that's ready to investigate right now and waste taxpayers' money, some of the biggest scandals of the past have come from the Republican Party. The insurrection, bribery of a foreign official, refusal to speak out and hold an American arch enemy accountable for wrongdoings, and in a stern way admonish him not to continue to do it or not to do it again. The Iran-Contra affair. Going to a war in Iraq. Don't be misled, people. Don't be misled. It's time for fact finding. And, decision-making time. We here at Soluble, we've taken it upon ourselves to try to put all the facts there, as I've said, because we came into perilous political times. And that's how Soluble came into being, because we entered a perilous political time. These are so-called minority votes that Republicans want to take away. Voting rights are on the ballot. Voting rights are on the ballot in the midterm election. The Supreme Court has just started a new session. What cases will come up before the Supreme Court in this some of the first cases in this new calendar year? If you don't know, then you need to get in to know. But the Supreme Court has been tainted. But in a good, bad way. The good of it is it shows democracy works, because this is a Supreme Court that is made up of not enough people voting. So the majority still rules. If the majority of the votes are coming from the right, and you have voters on the left who can vote but refuse to vote, then you can have a Supreme Court that doesn't really look nothing like what the American people expect. It could be out of balance. So the reversal to this, it's wrong now. To make it right, there you have it. Rock the vote. Rock the vote. You have a one-term president who sat 3 Supreme Court justices. That alone should shock you to get up and vote. That alone should shock you to get up and vote, because this is the law of the land. The buck stops here. When the Supreme Court says it's law, that's law. And it's seriously unbalanced right now because of a lack of voting, especially when we didn't come out in large numbers for President Obama in the midterms in 2010. So here we have it, folks. The direction of democracy. The direction of democracy is going to be determined in 35 days when we come to that fork in the road and we see, does America go right or does America go left? 35 days. And we're going to, in the coming days, we're going to take each individual topic that we feel like is important to the American people: the economy, crime, climate change, the Supreme Court, taxes, the deficit. We're going to take all these items and we're going to break them down one by one, leading up to November the 6th. And kind of give you an idea of what's going on, each and every one of them, from a soluble point of view. And, hopefully that can help you better make up your mind if you haven't already. Hopefully it could be something that's eye-opening to make you want to get engaged more. I mean, like it or not, we're in a system where, we vote in leaders and we vote out leaders. And a big reason for the current state of affairs with the Republican Party is we voted in a leader by not voting. We voted in a leader by not voting. And so the email trick that they used against Hillary Clinton, who would have made a great president, by the way. The email trick that they used on candidate Clinton, it's like, you fooled me once, shame on you. Are you gonna be fooled twice? Because if you are, then it's shame on you. It's shame on you. And democracy will take the direction of something we've never seen before. Think of the number of times where we had a president in office and the word unprecedented was used. That's another one of the things among the many that should shock you, that should make you want to sit up and take notice and say, I have to play my role in this system. I have to vote my leader in, because my no vote actually votes my opponent in. Think about it. Think about it long and hard. We had a free and fair election, and democracy is in a state of peril like we've never seen since the Civil War. Like we've never seen since the Civil War. That's where we're at. So my interpretation of the whole matter here at Soluble is we have to beat them twice. We have to beat them twice. Then, even though we know that we had a free and fair election, history will record that there was a double defeat from the presidential election of 2020 to the midterms. Are we going to go backward, or are we going to go forward? What direction will this democracy take in 30 days? Can somebody help me with that? Can some intelligent listener out there answer that question for me? What direction will democracy take in the next 35 days? You're going to get what you get. If we had a Republican president in office now, he couldn't dictate the price at the grocery store. The president of the United States of America is by all means usually a somewhat intelligent person with a above average, most of the time above average IQ. But they can't tell you or dictate or determine what the price of a dozen of eggs will be at the grocery store, or a leg of lamb, or a tray of steaks. They can't tell you this. This is all determined by supply, demand, other things that may affect the market. But it's not of the president's doing. That's why you've never seen former presidents before President Trump. You've never seen presidents too much before him dilly and dally and worry about the stock market. Bragging on the stock market or talking about the stock market in these terms. You don't usually see a president doing that before the former president, because they can't determine that. That is determined more. That's more of a market-driven determination. What are the markets saying? And the president of the United States of America can't tell the markets what to say, because he can't tell the farmer how to slaughter off his beef to bring prices down, or how to make their chickens lay more eggs, or how to get them to the market faster. That's not his line of work. That's not his line of work. So, point being, you see the Republicans now, they're beating the president up. They're beating him up on groceries, how high groceries is, and how high groceries is, as if the president really controls that. And he doesn't. And the Republicans know that. But hey, the playbook works. You know, the playbook is not broken. So why change it up? Why rewrite it? Now you have a chance, the American people. Now, here's a grand opportunity to force them, to cause them to have to rewrite the playbook and come with more honesty, integrity. Give us political policy substance on their opponent, not just personal attacks, fear mongering, making their political opponent into the boogeyman in some kind of way who's going to destroy America, who's going to let all the criminals go free, who's going to turn loose the woke mob. Now is the time to cause them to have to change, rewrite the playbook. But if you keep going for the same fried ice cream, then what do you get? Mush. Mush. Nothing. Nothing that's enjoyable. Nothing that's enjoyable. You know, you have to ask yourself right now, with the intensity of the storms that are coming, how you have fiscal conservatives looking the other way or signing off on legislation that adds to the deficit and doesn't take away from it. How they're looking the other way while these programs and legislation, these bills, these requests, they don't pay for themselves. You know, you see the president now, he's quick to let the American people know that the bills, the legislation that he's passing, it doesn't add to the deficit. He's quick to say that. It pays for itself. It doesn't add to the deficit. Now, there may be something in there. If you take it line by line, you may find something where he's wrong. And if you do, bring it to our attention here at Soluble, or if you're that politically involved, point it out, call them on it. And then, let's see what the reaction is. Let's see what the reaction is. But you can call them on it without being insulted, without being made to feel afraid or be intimidated. Right now, you can call in to the president, to his aides, or whatever hotline that is available for you, the American people, to voice your concerns or complaints. And you have an avenue there to reach out to your political officials. And when you do, whether it's with praise or criticism, but especially criticism, you don't get death threats. Right now, you have a president in office, unlike the former president, that you can criticize. And you don't get a wave of death threats coming at you. Personal attacks coming at you, attacking your children, your wives. You don't have that now. So we're 35 days away. We're going in a direction. We changed course. We tried Make America Great Again. We tried MAGA. It didn't sit well. It didn't taste good. It was too hard to swallow. Even when you drank water with it, it was a bitter pill. And so we changed directions because the American voter is not stupid by no means. The American voter is not ill-informed. You're not going to be able to piss down the back of an American voter and tell him it's raining outside. So we changed course. Now, based on the system that we're in, that we live in, that we operate under, a system of democracy, you're headed down a smooth path, if you will. A path of more of being in the know, not keeping things from the American people, operating in secrecy, being told things are going right when they're really going left. You're going down a road now where you can consult with your political leaders. You have a president in office who has a fully staffed and working administration. No actors. We don't need them. We don't need them. Save that for, the Thursday night comedy show. Save that for that. Let the actors act. We're not against acting. But when it comes to running a government, being the head of government, that's what you have now on this road that we're traveling. The direction of democracy that we're going right now. We have a fully functioning president who's in tune, who's willing to come forth through press conference and make the American people aware of what's going on. You're fully in the know. You can question it. You can criticize it without death threats. Why get off that road and go back? As I said, as if we don't know what the definition of stupid is. You would take a functioning president right now with a fully functioning staff and administration, a fully functioning cabinet, working diligently for what's best for America and the American people right now. Whether you agree with everything they're doing, none of the things they're doing, the least you can say is that they're working for the American people. They're working for the American people, every one of us, from the highest levels to the lowest levels. If the party on the left was going after America's wealthy, the 1% or whatever Bernie Sanders likes to champion, you see it, consistently. You see them doggedly trying to raise taxes. But when it comes to taxes, the Democratic stance is that everybody should pay their fair share. Not a penny more. Not a penny more. This is a good direction to me. And, if you're out here listening, if you tune in later and you beg to differ, put it out there. Put your comment out there. Send us feedback. We'll be glad to receive it and, spin it around, chew it up, savor it and see what kind of flavor we have there. But at the end of the day, we should all be looking for a solution, a political solution to any and everything that government can do to make our lives better. And as I said, we're going to touch on all those issues leading up to the midterm. Everything from crime to taxes to the deficit to the Supreme Court to climate change. We're going to touch on all of it. A fork is in the road. It's coming up in 35 days. There's a fork in the road. And the majority of people who make that fork, whether it's to the right turn or to the left, will begin to determine the direction of democracy. Not what direction are we in right now. I've tried to make it clear. We have a president in office working tirelessly for the American people. That's the beginning and end of it. Working tirelessly on everything. You don't see the Democrats come out at no level. Senators, congressmen, governors, mayors, the president, you don't see them come out and say, there's nothing wrong with grocery prices right now. That's the times that we're in. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing we can do about it. Just live with it. You don't see that. So that tells you that the administration and the politicians are working behind the scenes, trying to lower the cost. Comprehensive immigration legislation will go a long ways in this country of helping to lower some of the grocery costs. The vast majority of these immigrants that want to come into America, they want to work. This can go a long ways in helping us, ease the supply snarls that we have on our imports and exports. They can help the farmers out when it's hard for the farmers to find, qualified, willing labor to work crops in America. So there you have it. The direction of democracy. The direction of democracy is on the ballot. And we, the people, will have to determine which fork in the road we'll take. One fork in the road keeps you going in the same direction that you've been going in. We won't go into all the things that you've had in the former administration when democracy was going in a different direction before we turn it around. We won't delve into all of that. You already know. We will give refreshers throughout our podcast leading up to the midterms. But as of right now, we won't just go into each and everything. But it's there. History has already recorded it. You know it. And we will begin to break each one of these issues down individually, leading up to the midterms. But we leave you tonight with that question. What direction will this democracy take? That's the question we're leaving you with tonight. And the question is coming out of this podcast segment titled Direction of Democracy. We know that, the former president had us leaning more towards king for a day type government, banana republic type stuff. So we're going to break it down. We're going to break it down leading up to the midterms and continue to try to be an eye opener, if you will, to help you give thought to something you may not have realized before leading up to the midterm. But we all can play a role. For the Democrats, turnout is the key. Turnout is the key. Because when we turn out, we get the result that we want. Especially when it comes to the demographic of Negroes in America voting. Voting in large numbers, coming out in mass. As I've said before, let's put politics in the category of sports. Except for this is not, the object of this game is not to score. And whoever wins is the one with the most points. The object of this game is to think. And think your way into a better way of life. That's what this sport is all about. Participating in it and becoming aware and then thinking yourself into a better way of life. That's what wins. That's what wins in this sport of politics. That's all we have for tonight. We'd like to thank you for coming out, tuning in to this podcast segment, The Direction of Democracy. It's 35 days to the midterms. So it's time to show up and show out. We're going to put all the facts out and let you, the American people, decide. So until our next podcast, and as I said, we're going to be coming in more heavily now to break each issue down independently. But until then, this is Soluble signing off, saying good night. We'd like to thank you for tuning in and continue to keep your prayers, thoughts, donations towards the people in South Florida, especially in the Fort Myers area, for what they've been through in this past week. This is Soluble signing off. Thank you for tuning in and good night.